Hello, everybody. Happy Monday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first I want to give a shout out to all the subscribers, and special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially the elite channel members: Brendon, Mikel, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tiger 75, Ryguy, Salacious, Crumb, Brendan Nelson's Haircut, TlVlO, ItsHoof, The Reno, 12th Man, Austin Roberts, Scott Todd, and PH Glass. Let's get crazy. All right, guys? Let's get a little crazy right now. It's a few days before the draft starts. I know we don't have a lot of draft capital. I know we're not going to get any of the top prospects. We're probably only going to get a few players of interest. Let's get nuts. Let's get nuts for just a few minutes here, because I saw a story developing in the NFL right now, and against my better judgment and against the logical processes of my brain, I couldn't help but start thinking about it, and I couldn't help but start thinking about it from a Seahawks fan perspective. So I arguably shouldn't be making a video about this, because there's no reason to believe there's any concrete evidence that any of this stuff that I'm about to talk about is going to happen or has any chance of happening. But let's just get nuts for a minute here, guys. Let's do it. Okay, so earlier today, this morning, I read an article on PFT. Will the Falcons find a taker for Julio Jones? Posted by Mike Florio. I am not going to read this whole article. It's quite long, but the short version is the Falcons are reportedly aggressively trying to trade Julio Jones. They're trying to ignite his trade market right before the draft. And they may be looking to trade him before the draft, during the draft, or after the draft. Trading for Jones does incur some pretty massive cap hits, which we'll get into in a minute here when I take a look at his contract. Suffice to say that as of right now, Julio Jones has some big cap hits on his remaining contract, and he may want a new contract if he goes to a new team. And Julio has been one of the best receivers in the NFL and one of the better ones in NFL history over the last decade. But he did miss 7 games last year due to injury. It was his first year not making the Pro Bowl in, I think, 6 or 7 years. And he is 32, going to be 33 by the time the next Super Bowl is played, I think. So there are some reasons why you might be concerned about trading for Julio Jones, but I want to talk about this. Now, any team that would trade for Julio Jones needs to have a need at wide receiver. That's us. They would need to be able to afford his salary. I think that's us. And they would need to be a team that is trying to win a Super Bowl now, as in this year and next year. That's most certainly us. So I cannot help but look at this report about Julio and start wondering, you know, we don't have much going for us in this draft right now as it is, but would you rather get 2 years of a sure thing over 4 to 15 years of a complete unknown? When you're in a situation like the Seahawks are right now, maybe you'd rather have 2 years of a sure thing. So this article goes on to suggest that a future second-round pick might be fair for Julio Jones. Now, future second-round pick implies next year. So future second-round pick is approximately equal in value to a third-round pick now. The further you move out, the less value a draft pick has. So a future second is worth a current third in most people's metrics. Now, if you continue to go on in this article, the Florio admits that it won't be easy to find a taker for Jones. Given the recent injury history and the magnitude of the contract, teams may not be lining up for a player who quite possibly is in decline. The general sentiment of this article is that if the Falcons trade Julio Jones, it will not be to get massive assets. It will not be to have some sort of Herschel Walker trade that sets them up for success for the next decade. The intent for a Julio Jones trade would be just to save some money. They're trying to save the $15.3 million or something like that they would owe Julio Jones this year. And they can't cut him because that money is fully guaranteed. So here's the thing. What if there are no takers for Julio Jones? What if there's no real trade market for him because he's old, because he was injured last year, because he's making a ton of money, etc., etc.? What if our 4th round pick plus a little bit extra could get it done? Would you do it? If the Falcons get desperate, they just want the cap relief, they don't really care what they get back for Julio, would you do it if it was Julio Jones for our 4th round pick and maybe one other little piece? Maybe, I don't know, 5th round pick next year, or maybe a marginal player. Would you do it if it was a 4th round pick plus Marquise Blair? How high would you have to go before you would start thinking about saying no? Because I have to tell you, I like some of the guys we could get in the 4th round this year. There are some cornerbacks that I really like. There are some receivers that I like. There are a couple other interesting positions that, interesting prospects rather, I should say. But if you can get Julio instead, that might be worth it. So taking a look at Julio Jones as a player, he's got the size. He's got size on size. 6'3", 220 pounds. Dude's plenty big enough for this offense, even regardless of whether or not Shane Waldron actually does prioritize size in his receivers. In 2020, he was on pace to have his usual Pro Bowl season, were it not for the fact that he missed 7 games. Now, missing 7 games is no joke, but if you take a look at this, you can pretty clearly see that had he played a full season, he would have probably had his typical 1,200 plus yards and probably would have made the Pro Bowl again. So if he can stay healthy, I feel pretty comfortable saying this guy is still an elite receiver. He was catching 75% of his targets before he got hurt, by the way. Check this out. A career high. He had never topped 70% before. He had never topped 68% before. So, or excuse me, he had never topped 70% before. So, yeah, this guy has juice left in the tank. Now, what about the money? Does the money work? Let's say you trade your 4th round pick plus, say, Marquise Blair. Let's just put that name out there for now. And you get Julio Jones. What about the money? Okay, here's Julio Jones's contract as of this moment. You can't, this is why the Falcons can't cut him right now. They would owe him $40 million. Okay, so obviously we would not be trading for him to cut him. So he plays 2021. 2022, cap hit of $19.2 million, or $19.3 million. Dead cap, if cut, of 17.5. You're not going to cut him there, right? You're not. You're not going to cut him and try to save $1.8 million when you can just keep him and have a future Hall of Fame receiver, obviously. 2023, savings of about $11.5 million if you cut him. Dead cap hit of 7.75. Okay, that is workable. That is something you can do. Teams take dead cap hits of $7.75 million all the time. They're not excited to do it, but it's a possibility. So in this scenario, the Seahawks trade their 4th round pick on Friday, or actually Saturday, and a player or a future pick for Julio Jones. Falcons get a ton of cap relief, and we get Julio for 2 years, after which we move on from him and take the $7.75 million dead cap hit. Would you do that? Would you rather have 2 years of Julio Jones or 4 to 10 years of somebody like Emer Smith-Marset? Would you rather have 2 years of Julio Jones or 4 to 10 years of Israel Mukamu? So, I don't know, man. I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm not saying this is in the works. I'm not saying this team has shown any interest. But we do need help at receiver. Right now, Freddie Swain is our number 3, and I'm sorry, that's not good enough for me. Not even close. So, as of right now, I suspect that it will be a challenge for the Falcons to find a trade partner for Julio. They're not going to get big assets back, I don't think. So, that being the case, if they get desperate enough to say, hey, Seahawks, just give me your 4th-round pick and a player or a pick in the future, what happens? I kind of think I would do it. I kind of feel like this would supercharge our offense. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Sorry for the semi-clickbait. I know the team has not been floated in these reports at all, as far as I know anyway. I know that Julio hasn't indicated, oh yeah, I want to come to Seattle, but I can't help myself. Seeing this report this morning and putting the pieces together in my head, it just made sense. And I feel like we could make it work. Remember, Jamal Adams and DK Metcalf, if they get extended, are not going to be making huge money next year. That's going to be the first year of their new contracts. It's not going to be massive money yet. So you can take on the massive cap hit of Julio and then move on from him in 2023 when the cap hits of guys like DK and Jamal starts to go way up. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm going to get out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. Let's get nuts, guys. Few days left before the draft. Let's get nuts.